So we are going to be doing a fairly lengthy example. We are going to be formatting the example first using Flexbox, and then we're going to basically take the same thing and do traditional box method on it. You're going to be walking through your book while you're doing this. And so you're going to start with this listing 452 file and listing 452 CSS, and you also need to download my image. And make sure you put them in the proper folders, because it's actually all set up to display correctly as long as you put the files in the right spots. Then you are going to be opening this in the browser, because this one is really not going to change. What you're going to be changing is primarily your CSS. So you're going to open this in the browser, and you're going to go open this one for editing. And the way this is going to look to start with is something like this. Not very impressive. And you're going to end up with something that looks like this. Okay? And your CSS starts like this. Okay? So as you go through, you will be making adjustments to that CSS. And here's your starting file, so you can just kind of see what that looks like. And you can see that they are heavily using IDs. Now, I normally don't use a lot of IDs with my CSS because in web programming, there are languages like JavaScript and PHP that use ID names to access content. So I tend not to use them as much in the CSS. But this textbook author really likes IDs. So that is why he's just kind of set up everything, styling using IDs. There are some times when he's using elements and sometimes when he uses classes, but a lot of the styling is through IDs. So this is your HTML file. And basically, the styling kind of starts at the top and goes to the bottom. So as you work through the listings, you are going to be creating styling for the different sections, and it starts with the header styling. Okay, so we've got an ID logo header, and so the styling for that begins here. So you can see that we are creating a flexible container here. This is another Flexbox command that's basically saying to evenly space the content. We're giving it a height and a width. We've got some padding settings, and we have a color. The divs that are one level below logo header, we are assigning flex, so those are flexible items, and we have width and padding settings in those. And we're also specifying some styling for the header 1 text. Okay, so this is all going to affect the text that's in the heading section right here. So where does that end up on the page? It's this big blue box here. And that is the section that got styled. Okay, then the next section that we style is main menu. So main menu is basically referring to the nav element. So that is where the ID main menu is located. Nav stands for navigation. So it is this section that is getting styled. So if we look at this, we've got main menu. We're saying that's a flexible container. And we're also, working on the spacing using Justify Content Center. And then we've got like the normal width, height, padding. We are putting a border on the top and a bottom, although they are kind of hard to see, but they are there. So we've got lines there. And then anything that is a div and one level down from our main menu ID is going to be a flexible item, which is a child. And we're saying the maximum width any of those can be is 960 pixels, which is actually really big. Then within the main menu ID, the list lines should display inline block. So instead of displaying vertically, which they normally would do, we want them to display horizontally. And what this is referring to is this little section here. See how it's vertical? We want them horizontal. Okay, so that's what inline block is doing. We want them to have a height of 35. We want some padding on the top, the right, none at the bottom, want some at the left. We also want a little space on the right margin. When we point to those items and we hover over them, we want the color to change. And then for the links, because there are links in there, okay, see we have the href with the anchor. For the links, we want the size to be bigger, the color to be dark, and no underlining. So that underlining that we see over here is going to go away. The dots are actually going to go away, and they're going to be bigger, and they're going to be across the screen. So that is how they get styled this way. So then moving on down here, the next section that gets styled is the main selector, the main tag. And the divs that are one level below main also get styled. And so we're saying this is also a flexible container. Okay, and we don't have this background image, so don't worry about that. And we're saying that the division that are tags that are one level below main, those are the children. Okay, or actually no, those are also flexible container and a child. It's both. So taking a look here, we are talking about this little section here. And so we have a div, and this is the div that is one level below. So we're saying it's a child, but it's also a container. A child and a container. Then we get to main articles. Now this ID is right here on section. So we're saying that that is a child, and we're giving it a margin, some padding, a background color, also border radius, which is going to give us rounded corners. Then we get to the aside section, and that is way down here. Now that is still inside main, but you can see that it has an ID of aside info. It has a heading in there, and it's got a couple paragraphs. So we have aside info. So that whole section is going to get this styling with the width, the padding, the color, and the rounded corners. The H1 that's inside that section is going to be styled. And at this point, let's go ahead and take a look. Let's see. So we are talking about all of this. This is what we're looking at. Okay, and article time, day number, day name, that is all included in that very large section. So we might as well talk about that before we look at the final result. So article, we've got some padding, that's about it. The time element that is inside article. We are going to display that as block, so that's going to be vertical. We are giving it an absolute position. So the position that it starts from, we're going to go up and to the left. So negative top moves it up, negative left moves it to the left. And we've got a width and we've got some padding. We've also got some background color. We're giving it a little shadow effect, and the corners are going to be rounded. And then the day number and the day name, that text, because it is text that has that. Okay, that text, the number 23 will be styled, and the word Friday. And down here, the number 7 and the word Wednesday will be styled. The daytime, the box with the shadow that's going to end up getting moved is this little section here. So this is going to be a box with the shadow, and it gets positioned up and to the left. Okay, so you can kind of see that here. See the little shadow? Before it was absolutely positioned, it would have probably been overlapping some of this content. That is why it was absolutely positioned up and to the left. And same with this one, it would have been overlapping some content. And let's see. The figure is the actual image itself. That's inside the figure element. And you can just see that we are giving it a little margin, giving it some padding, putting a border around the image. Not a whole lot going on there, but you can actually kind of see that there's a little extra space, and you can certainly see the border there. The next section basically deals with the footer. All of this is taking a look at all of this text down here. So we're saying it's a flexible container, and we're saying that we want it centered. Okay, we're doing the width, the padding, and the background color. We're saying that the division tags that are one level below the logo footer ID are also a container. They're also considered a child. And we're just applying some width settings, background color, and rounded corners. We get to a class called footer section. This is a child. And we've got some special formatting for the title there, and for the paragraphs, and also for the links. Okay, so anything with the footer section is considered a child. So let's take a look at what's going on down here. So you can see, as we said, the logo footer is a parent container. This is a child, and this is a child, and this is a child. So we have 3 children inside the parent container. Okay, and then we also said the div was a child, basically to logo footer, but it is a parent to footer section. Okay, so here's the div, and you can see that indeed is a parent to footer section and a child of logo footer. Okay, so lots going on here. And if we scroll down, this is how it ends up being formatted. Okay, so this is the Flexbox version. And I highly recommend, as you go through this, entering the CSS, viewing the page offline, entering the CSS, save and view offline. That way, if you've miskeyed anything, you'll catch it right away, and it lets you see the changes as they happen.